I think I'm recording. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone had a good Thursday and a good week. We're going to go ahead and go through the fiber guide as much as we can in the next 50 minutes. And if people show up, I'll let them in and I'll answer questions. But if not, I'll post this to the community too, and you'll be able to view the fiber guide that way. Okay. The reason I wanted to start doing, I've always wanted to talk a lot about fiber, but I think as I've been on social media, the longer and longer I've been on, I've realized how little people know about fiber and how hard it can be. But I think the more you learn about it, the easier it gets, as with everything. But I think it's just something that isn't talked about a lot. And I think a lot of people can complicate it. And then there's also a lot of misconceptions and different things on social media that people are doing, like the carnivore diet, or some people might be diagnosed with like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, and they're told by their doctor to go on a low fiber diet, which might be something like short term, but not necessarily long term. And as I've worked in GI, I've seen the confusion over and over again. So I worked in, I don't know how many people know this, but just a little about me too, is before I was doing my own practice, I was working in the hospital with the gastrointestinal team, and I worked with an inflammatory bowel disease team. So that's going to be Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. Essentially, that just means you have inflammation in your gut. And we would constantly get new diagnoses, and it was really difficult. I was in pediatrics. So it was really hard to try to educate families in the hospital, like they're newly diagnosed, but trying to give them a diet is really difficult. And I felt like there was a lot of inconsistencies as well with what we were recommending to families, because that's one of the diets that that's a condition where at first you might need to be a little low fiber. And traditionally people were told to go low fiber, but they weren't really guided on how to increase their fiber. And they weren't educated on the importance of fiber. So a lot of times people would get an education from me, and we talk about maybe the Mediterranean diet, which is just standard eating a variety of different food groups, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and they would be confused because, they would Google like diet for inflammatory bowel disease and they'd be told to go low fiber. So yeah, I just wanted to learn more and more about fiber so I could help more people understand fiber. And I also know that besides inflammatory bowel disease, there's also things that so many people have, IBS, for instance, and a lot of bloating, GI upset, diarrhea, constipation, and a lot of those things would be improved with more fiber and more diversity in their diet, which isn't always easy when, it's something that isn't as tolerated as other foods. So it might be easier to increase your protein intake, but fiber is a little difficult because it does cause some of those GI symptoms. So I want to be able to help people increase their fiber as well without having those uncomfortable GI symptoms. And also with colon cancer on the rise, really scary. I know that people didn't need to get colonoscopies until like age, I think like 45 or 50. And now they're moving that down because they're noticing a rise in young adults. So women and men under the age of 50. So yeah, I also think it's something that's really hard to get into the doctor for. If you're having issues with your gut, you might wait to see a GI doctor and then you get told, okay, take Metamucil or do something like Miralax, which is fine. But a lot of people might not tolerate Metamucil, or they don't want to take Miralax all the time. And I think there's, obviously doctors have their scope and they're helping people within their scope and helping people, get colonoscopies or endoscopies or medication. But there is a lot more to increasing your fiber than Metamucil. There's a lot more to going to the bathroom than taking Miralax. So yeah, that's the biggest thing that I wanted to help with, because I just constantly get questions about this too. So we'll go through some of the things in this guide are, what fiber is and the types of fiber we have, as well as the roles. and what food groups you can find fiber in, how you can increase your fiber without having all the bloat, different amounts of fiber per each fiber food group. And if you got the fiber guide, you also get a meal plan sample, and obviously you're all in the community. So this is more about me, which I kind of explained. I worked in GI health with the gastrointestinal team in the hospital. So I did do Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. I worked with EOE patients, and then different patients with IBS, different patients with bowel resections, so getting part of their small or large intestine taken out, as well as a lot of food allergies, food intolerances, newly diagnosed celiac patients. And now I see patients with similar conditions or patients with things like SIBO, or helping patients understand where their bloating is coming from and trying to find the root cause of that. I know a lot of people ask about how they can get fiber in being on, a low carbohydrate diet, and really anyone long term. And it's almost impossible because fiber is a carbohydrate. I wish I had a little example, but if you just look at any food label, underneath the carbohydrate section, you're going to see fiber, and you're going to see sugar and added sugar. So what makes up a carbohydrate is starch, sugar and added sugar, as well as fiber. If you were to look at like a slice of bread, on the label, you might see per one slice, it's 100 calories, and per one slice, it's a total of 20 grams of carbohydrates, and maybe it's 5 grams of fiber and 1 gram of sugar. So if you were to take the total carbohydrates and subtract how much fiber is there, you do 20 grams carbohydrates minus 5 grams of fiber, so you have 15 grams total left. And then if you subtracted the sugar from that, the total of starch would be the remaining from the carbohydrate. I don't know if that made sense. I can explain it when I have a label, but essentially those are the 3 things that make up a carbohydrate. So sometimes they will strip fiber from the carbohydrate. The easiest example would be like brown versus white rice. So the outside part, the brown part, is what's the fiber. And then when they take that off, they're lowering the amount of fiber in the whole grain, the rice. So fiber is always going to be considered a carbohydrate. It's just some carbohydrates have more fiber than others. And the more fiber you have in the carbohydrate, the less likely you're going to have a spike in your blood sugar, for instance. And the more fiber you get. Fiber is also not digested. So when we eat all other foods, it goes into our body. It's broken down. For instance, you'll eat protein. Protein gets broken down into amino acids. Amino acids go into your bloodstream, and they will go to your muscles to help you grow and repair your muscles. They can go to your gut. A common supplement is glutamine, for instance. That's an amino acid that'll go to your gut to help repair the gut lining and protect the gut lining. And then there's 21 amino acids. So they're all going to different places and doing different things. But that's coming from, protein gets broken down into polypeptides to peptides to amino acids. So that's a whole process. As we eat, we are slowly breaking down protein in our stomach and in our small intestine. But fiber is essentially just going right through us. A lot of people will say, oh, well, if fiber just goes right through us, it's pointless, it's undigested, but that's the point. So when we think of insoluble fiber, which is going to be like the outside parts of fruits and vegetables, so like the skin, that can go right through you, but that's what's helping push stool out. But then we have the soluble part of fiber, which is going to go right through you until it gets to your colon. And that's when it becomes food for your gut. And that's when it does all of the magical things it does. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But you'll commonly hear people say soluble versus insoluble fiber. And honestly, I feel like it's really easy to get confusing, and I don't really think it needs to be overthought much. You'll see a lot of videos and things online. So I always wanted to think of a way that really studying it, if I had to think about how I could explain what soluble versus insoluble fiber is, this is how it makes the most sense to me. So I think it makes the most sense to a lot of you as well. So soluble and insoluble fiber, and every single form of fiber you eat. So whether that's in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, beans, or legumes, they're going to have insoluble and soluble fiber parts. Unless you're doing something that is a fiber supplement, that's when they really isolate the fiber. So we have fiber, and then we have insoluble and soluble fiber, and there's tons of different types within that. So you might have an apple, for instance, and that apple is going to have a little bit of insoluble fiber. It's going to have some soluble fiber. One type of soluble fiber it has is pectin, and there's multiple types of fiber within each food group, which is really cool. That's the good thing. And we want to have those multiple roles and the multiple types of fibers. So if you're eating something with soluble fiber, it's going to help form a gel in the gut, and it's going to help slow down your digestion. So it's going to help you not having a blood sugar spike. Things like oatmeal or apples, those are some big ones that have soluble fiber in them. And then the other thing soluble fiber can do is it is going to ferment in the gut, which essentially is you're eating a piece of fiber. It's going to go right through you, get to your colon, and it's going to help form a gel. So it's going to help form that stool, but it's also going to be food for the gut microbes you have in your gut. When you eat probiotics, for instance, that's adding more good gut bacteria to your gut, but those gut bugs in your gut need food. So the fiber, you eat it and then it goes right through you, but it ends up being food for your gut bugs in your colon. And when your gut bugs in your colon eat the fiber, that process is called fermentation, and fermentation can create gas and short-chain fatty acids. So short-chain fatty acids are butyrate, propionate, and acetate. And butyrate, for instance, is a short-chain fatty acid that is created when you eat fiber in your gut, and it helps with lowering inflammation and protecting your gut lining. So some foods have more of the fermentation properties in them. So things like garlic, onions, asparagus, those have soluble fiber that can help form a gel, but they mostly are really going to ferment in your gut. So that's why a lot of those fruits and vegetables can make people maybe a little more gassy than others, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's only a bad thing if it's making you uncomfortable and maybe you're having more gas than someone else would. But a little bit of fermentation, a normal amount of fermentation, I should say, is good because it creates really good things for us. And the other type of fiber is insoluble fiber. So like I said, the outside of fruits and vegetables and the skin part is what's going to go right through you. So it's really going to help move things out. So you'll eat an apple, it'll have a little bit of soluble fiber that'll help form a stool for you, but it's also going to have some soluble fiber that's going to help feed your gut and create healthy things like butyrate to help lower the inflammation in your gut. And the outside of the apple is also going to help you go to the bathroom. So it all intertwines, and there's multiple benefits of fiber. And then each type of food is going to have different types that are going to all do these things, but they might do them in a little different of a way. And that's why getting diversity is so important. Hopefully that made sense. Another thing people say a lot is like soluble fiber will help with diarrhea, and insoluble fiber will help with constipation. That's pretty generalized. If you are feeling more constipated, having some fruits and vegetables with the skin can help because the insoluble fiber is going to be in the skin, and that's what helps move things out. And then if you are feeling like your stool might be a little looser, then maybe you would feel a little better with peeling your fruits and veggies for a little bit. But pretty simplified. Overall, all types of fibers are going to help with constipation and diarrhea. The goal is to get a balance of all different types of fibers and to be consistent with what you're eating and not having too much fiber at one meal and then none for another 3 days. You want to get diversity and have normal portions throughout the day because that's going to help give you normal bowel movements rather than focusing on one type of fiber that was put in. Like if they were to isolate a fiber and put it in like a mission tortilla or something, that tortilla can maybe give you some diarrhea because it's so much fiber in one thing rather than, okay, let's have a little bit of fiber in this piece of normal bread, no added fiber in it, just natural fibers in there. And then maybe a little bit of fiber in an avocado, a little bit of fiber in some hemp seeds. Getting some of that diversity can just help with not shocking yourself. Within the fiber guide, I actually changed this. So in the community, if you go to the resources section and you click on this section that it says start here. So you'll get some more information there on which foods have more insoluble fiber versus soluble fiber. There's a whole chart that's going to be linked there that I did just post about in the community chat that you can see too. So like I said, sometimes people have a hard time digesting fiber because they might not be used to it and they might be having just a mission tortilla. So if you're not familiar, someone else just posted about mission tortillas in the community, and some of those tortillas have like 18 grams of fiber. And that's awesome. I'm here for it. But if you read the ingredient list, you'll see that I think it's wheat dextrin, and that's just an isolated fiber. So it's kind of like adding a fiber supplement to a tortilla. So sometimes people might not tolerate that much at once. So if you're newer to fiber, the best thing to do is to, even if you're, I mean, most people, it takes a long time to learn fiber. So I would say any of you, a really good thing to do starting out or just periodically is to track your food for a few days and see where you're at with fiber. My favorite app to do that with is Chronometer. And the reason I like it is if you've seen some of my videos, I always try to put up a picture of what I ate and what it looks like in the tracking app. And whenever I click the fiber section, I'll try to show you, let's see if you can see it. Whenever I show the fiber section, it'll tell me exactly where all of that fiber came from in the day. So for instance, you'll be able to see this, maybe, maybe not. You'll see a Quest bar and a banana for a snack. And then you see calories, protein, carbs, fat. If you slide here, you'll see a fiber section, and you can click on that and it'll show you exactly how much fiber you got and how much fiber was in everything. So like the Quest bar had 14 grams of fiber, which I always forget about. And then the banana had 2 grams of fiber. So it's a nice way. Sometimes I'll just do it per meal and just to give myself an idea of where my fiber came from in that meal. And I don't have all the fiber, everything memorized, but the more I've done this over the past few years, the more I have memorized it. So that's kind of always what I've done too, to help myself learn the fiber sources. But then it's also helping you learn where you're getting your fiber and where you're at with fiber. Because if you're only at, on average, let's say you tracked for 3 days, you're only at 30 grams of fiber, then it's like, okay, that's actually pretty awesome. I should start lower. 30 grams is like perfect, especially baseline. But then let's say, okay, you track your fiber and you're getting like 15 grams of fiber. Okay, then let's, increase that to 20 grams of fiber for a few days and see how you're doing. And what could you add to your meal that has around 5 grams of fiber? Maybe you add a half an avocado to your meals that day, and that gives you another 5 grams of fiber. Or you add even just like an apple would be like 4 to 5 grams of fiber. So you're just gradually giving yourself some diversity without doing it all at once. And that can really help with not being bloated or uncomfortable. And sometimes, let's say you are up to a higher amount of fiber, or maybe you're not, but maybe you're just feeling a little bloated that day, or you're having more gas. It's okay to start over. You can just have a few days without a lot of fiber and just start adding fiber back in. A few days like with low fiber isn't bad. You have to think about things as, what am I doing on a day-to-day basis for years? If you're feeling like bloated, gassy, you have a stomach ache, a lot of you are familiar with like the brat diet. When you were sick, you would have just like bread, rice, apple, or toast, banana. I think it's banana, rice, apple, toast. I think that's what it is. But that's one thing to do. Or you can peel fruits and vegetables, or peel the potato, because that's going to get rid of the insoluble fiber. So if you're having a lot of diarrhea, that could be a good thing to do. A lot of people also tolerate cooked veggies and cooked fruits, fiber sources a little better. So if you are having some issues, I would probably, get rid of the insoluble fiber first, peel the fruits and veggies and cook them, because the more you cook, so by the time it gets to your colon, it's a little bit more broken down and your body can tolerate it a little better. I would also say out of all the fiber groups, so we have fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, beans, legumes. The nuts and the seeds and the beans and legumes are probably the most irritating. Nuts are the most satiating food ever. They're awesome. They have so much healthy fats. They have some protein. They have fiber in them. If you're feeling like, at the end of the day, I'm so unsatisfied, what could I eat? That's my favorite thing, because it's like, fiber, protein, healthy fats. Those are all the things that can really make you feel really satisfied. But they're also delicious, and people have a hard time with portion control. So sometimes that can give you a lot of fiber. And other times too, some people are sensitive to the lectins in nuts. So those can also be a little irritating. So I would say if you are also having some stomach aches, I would probably chill on the nuts and seeds for a little bit. Just watch your portions there. And same with like nut butters and stuff. And then a lot of people ask about chia seeds. So a few years ago, I don't know if it was a few years ago, but if you Google like chia seeds, you'll see that someone had, I don't know what they did. They had to have dry scooped chia seeds, which doesn't sound very appealing. I don't know how that could happen. Regardless, they ended up with chia seeds stuck in their esophagus. because if you've had chia seeds, which I'm sure a lot of you have, you notice that it absorbs water. So people now are like, make sure you soak your chia seeds, but that's also led to confusion because people think they need to like soak chia seeds in water before they add them to anything. You don't really need to do that. If you're putting chia seeds in any liquid, by liquid, I mean anything that is going to absorb. So it could be yogurt or oatmeal, for instance. Unless you're putting a ton, you don't need to really soak it that long. Sometimes I'll just take a little cup of yogurt and put maybe a tablespoon of chia seeds in there, and I'll let it sit for maybe 30 minutes, but not much more than that. Like you really just have to gauge it. But if it looks like the chia seeds have absorbed some liquid, you're probably fine. Adding to oatmeal as well, it will usually just automatically start to absorb some of the water. So yeah, just don't dry scoop chia seeds, but you're fine. Just like sprinkling them, even if you just sprinkle them on some toast, like just a little bit is fine. You want to avoid taking spoonfuls of chia seeds when you see it really clumped up, or just taking spoonfuls in general. Just keep it all portion controlled. And if you do add a larger amount to a liquid, you want it to soak. So like when I make chia seed pudding, I will do 1/4 cup of chia seeds and a cup of liquid. And usually overnight, I will leave it and the chia seeds will absorb the liquid. And then I'll take a few spoonfuls, but then I'll notice towards the bottom, like some of the chia seeds are like stuck together. So usually I'll just add a little more liquid and that'll help. But let me know if you have more questions on that, but you don't need to. Just be smart. Like you'll be fine. And then the other type of fiber that people do have some issues with too are beans and legumes, because beans are super fermentable. So when I said that some fiber ferments and that causes the production of gas, some fiber sources do it more than others. Beans are really high in fermentable fibers, and they're also longer chains of carbohydrates. So our body has a harder time breaking them down. If you've heard of like the low FODMAP diet, beans are higher FODMAP food, meaning they're really fermentable, they're harder to break down. So sometimes even a good way to start, if you feel like beans you don't tolerate very well, I always have people add like a couple chickpeas to a smoothie. You won't taste it, you'll blend it up, that'll help it break down, and you'll get your body a little used to chickpeas. So it might sound silly just to add a couple, like, oh, how much fiber is that? It doesn't matter. Just add a couple chickpeas. You know you're getting some fiber in. You don't need to really calculate that much, and then you'll get your body a little more used to it. Or even doing like some beans on a salad. Or another way to break down the fiber a little bit is to do like roasted chickpeas rather than adding raw chickpeas to your meal. And same thing with beans. Beans also can have lectins in them, and people talk about like lectins and phytic acid and all that. And like, it's not anything to be scared of. It's just like, if you're super sensitive, then you might do better by soaking your beans a little bit or pressure cooking them, just so you can break things down a little bit better for you, because everyone has different levels of sensitivity. So yeah, I would say the two groups of fiber that give people the hardest trouble are beans and legumes and nuts and seeds. And if you're feeling like that's you, like just take a break from them and gradually start adding them back in and watching the portions. Even like there's bean pastas and stuff. If you ever bought like, you could buy plain pasta and then you could buy some bean pasta and just mix it together. That could be a really easy way to also get yourself to get used to it. But even so, like outside of those groups, sometimes just if you're not used to some type of fiber, and by that I mean just a new food group or a new food, your body might not tolerate it that well. So I had someone in the community one day say something about adding, this is a really good idea too, mixing rice with quinoa and lentils. And that's a great way to get, I think you can do like 1 cup rice, a 1/2 cup lentils, a 1/2 cup quinoa, and you will, get more fiber because rice doesn't have that much fiber. So you add quinoa and lentils, you get a ton. Quinoa, some people just don't tolerate that well. I don't know if it's because, I feel like it's just because people don't eat it as much, or they eat too big of a portion. So that's another way to, lower the portion. But sometimes if it's something new like that, you might be okay, but you might be, better off doing just a tiny bit of, maybe instead of doing a 1/2 cup of quinoa, you just do like a few tablespoons of quinoa, a few tablespoons of lentils, or you just start with one. You just start with mixing rice with a little bit of quinoa. Get yourself used to some quinoa, and then you can increase the amount of quinoa. And then another week you could do some rice and lentils, And lentils are so high in fiber also. So getting your body used to that. And then if you're doing fine, then you can just mix them all together. But sometimes it's hard. Like, how are you supposed to know if you have a stomach ache, like where it came from, if you're not, going slowly and really like learning which foods you're used to and which you're not. Other big triggers can just be like when fiber's added to something. So like the Mission Tortillas or Catalina Crunch is a cereal that has extra fiber in it. Three Wishes is a cereal that has extra fiber in it. I have a lot of pastas with extra fiber and stuff, or like carbonate bread is a bread I really like with added fiber in it. So just being mindful of that too. Because some days you might be fine with it, but let's say you have a piece of a carbonate bread that has added fiber in it, and then you have an Olipop that has added fiber in it, and then you have a little bit of Catalina Crunch later in the day, and then you have some beans and lentils, and then you're like, oh my gosh, like it's a lot, especially added. So just being mindful of that and not like beating yourself up. Just don't beat yourself up. If you're a little tooty one day, it's okay. You just want to be like, okay, what did I eat today? Maybe I need a couple days without some fiber. Like it's okay to like start over and give yourself some break. And also drinking a lot of water is another thing. If you're eating much fiber and you're not drinking enough water, same with when you're eating chia seeds, like where is it going to go? That's, it can lead to constipation. It can lead to a stomach ache. Sometimes even like when I eat chia seeds, if I don't eat enough water or if I don't drink enough water that day, I can like feel a stomach ache coming on. And like, it's not necessarily, it's like, there's a difference between bloating and like feeling like the fiber might be a little stuck, but that's why I've mentioned something like a stomach massage. So like I can put a diagram up, but your right side of your abdomen on the outside is your ascending colon, and then across like by your rib cage is your transverse colon, and then down the left is your descending colon. So this is all your large intestine, same thing. Large intestine is the same thing as your colon, and then your small intestine is all in here. So sometimes if you're eating a lot of fiber and you start to notice some pain like on the outside, that happens to me sometimes, like right at the ascending colon if I didn't drink enough water, but I had a lot of fiber that day. So drinking more water and doing like a stomach massage can be really helpful. That's why people also, I saw a video the other day about like, oh, people doing like lymphatic drainage massages. Sometimes they just massage your stomach and it makes you poop. Like, it's just like, I mean, there is, benefit to doing like lymphatic drainage, but sometimes you just need a stomach massage and that can help. Same with different stretches and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of, causes for bloating and remedies for bloating. Sometimes it's more complex than others, and sometimes it's multiple things, but I feel like I'm getting a little off track, but yeah. And this guy's cute. Just a reminder, of course, that beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, like I said, they're really good for you. It's just a matter of, listening to your body and what you're feeling good from or what you're, maybe not having the best of time with. Thinking about like, okay, was I super stressed that day? Maybe that also didn't help. Was I running around eating all day? Maybe that didn't help with digestion either. So you don't want to always blame fiber. You really do want to think about your day-to-day and what, your pace of eating was, and, thinking about digestion as it's not just about fiber. It's about, your thoughts. It's a top-down process. So like your thoughts, how much you're chewing, if you're having, enough stomach acid in your stomach, if you're, letting yourself relax, and the more relaxed you are, the better you digest food. So thinking about those things too. And then also thinking about if you are getting a stomach ache from something, really reading the label, like, is it added fiber? Did they have some other stuff in it? Like that Quest bar has 13 grams of added fiber. It gave me a stomach ache, and I considered the fact that it was fiber, but I also knew that for me, I don't do well with really any high protein supplement type bar that has a lot of additives in it. And Quest bars do. Like sometimes it's better than nothing. Like I'm at the airport, I didn't have anything on hand, so I was like, I'm going to buy a Quest bar. But they have a lot of extra protein in them. I think it's like a whey concentrate, so it's not the most broken down type of protein. And it also has sugar alcohols in it. Anything that ends in xylitol, so like xylitol, erythritol, sorbitol, those can, I guess those are artificial sweeteners, those can cause some gas. And then the bar also had sucralose in it. And sucralose, for me, there's some studies on how if sucralose can cause inflammation and stuff, but I don't think we have enough evidence on all of that. But anecdotal evidence also matters. And, you know, the small studies also matter. I feel like sometimes people just assume like I love good research, obviously, but it's so hard to get good research on some of these things. So I think any research is good research. Obviously, if they're not thinking about other factors of someone's health, then we have to consider that. But yeah, I think a lot of people do have some irritation with sucralose. So you got to think about like sugar alcohols and artificial sweeteners and things like that too, and just reading the ingredient list. And if it's a super long ingredient list, that could be part of it. Like, let's really narrow things down here. And that's why I'm also like, let's not blame fiber, because there's so many things that can cause some issues. Okay, so it's 5:50. I'm just going to keep going, I think, because I knew this was going to take a long time. So we'll just have it so everyone can use it. So then I've mentioned this, but we have our 5 main fiber groups. So this has been the easiest way for me to get my fiber goals and also help you guys get your fiber goals. So at every meal, you want to think about whole grains, nuts, seeds, beans, legumes, fruits, and veggies. And it helps me every time. Sometimes I get annoyed because I'll be making a meal and I'll be like, oh, I don't want to add nuts or seeds or like whatever, but I know that I would be yelling at all of you. So we do it. And then how much fiber do we need? That is a good question. I know that most Americans are only getting 10 to 15 grams of fiber. And we have our standard recommendations, which with everything, that it's just the bare minimum. It's what we've seen in the research, but we've continued to do research. We keep doing research, and we're seeing that the more and more fiber we're eating, up towards 50 grams, is beneficial. It's just a matter of getting there and feeling good there, but it's definitely possible even to go higher than that. So I would say most people average 30 grams of fiber a day is great. You know, the more calories you're eating, the easier, you know, it can be to get higher fiber. But even so, if you're on like a calorie deficit, it can be even easier to be in that calorie deficit with more fiber as well as more protein. So just, you know, tracking your food a little bit, seeing where you're at, and then going from there. You don't need to get to 50 grams overnight. Like, there's definitely, like, I personally don't track. Like, every time I've done like a what I eat in a day, I will end up tracking after, and it works out, but that's because I'm really consciously thinking about getting fiber. So it doesn't need to be like a forever thing when it comes to tracking. It doesn't need to be like that. Just a helpful tool to help you learn the fiber sources and learn where you're at. So yeah, I guess I already said this, but you want to gradually, I did talk about hydration. Thank goodness. I was like, so you want to gradually increase your fiber. You don't want to just jump, you know, from 10 grams of fiber to 40. You want to gradually do it, see where you're at for a few days, tracking on the chronometer app, and then gradually increasing it. But if it's easier for you to just, I think the easiest way to do it is like, I think tracking is helpful, but it doesn't need to be like this super perfect picture. Like, oh, well, I had 15 grams of fiber today, so I have to have 20 today. And then, you know, do what you can, do what works best for you. But I think for me, like the easiest thing for me was like, okay, let me look at this meal. What can I add to it that has fiber in it? And my body was just naturally starting to get more fiber. Like, yeah, I would look at the portions, but sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's just a sprinkle of hemp seeds and then you move on. Like, it's just thinking about what can I add from the 5 fiber groups, whole grains, nuts, seeds, beans, legumes, fruits, and veggies, to give this meal more color. So you're getting more antioxidants, more polyphenols, and you're also just giving yourself more diversity and more fiber. So that's just a really easy way to do those things. And then again, making sure you're drinking water. There's different recommendations on water too. The more you work out, the more you're sweating, obviously the more water you need. A good starting point is typically, unless you're on like some type of fluid restriction, like let's take your weight, divide it by 2, and then that's a minimum of how many ounces of water you would need. But a lot of people, again, need more. Oops. Yep, okay. And then I updated this a little bit. I'm making a list, which I put in the weekly resources this week, of some of the highest fiber fruit some of the highest fruit with fiber, some of the highest fiber sources from the fruit category. And then I'm going to keep working on, making more of a list because, yeah, the more you know. Raspberries and blackberries are just top notch, super high in fiber. Guava, really high in fiber. Passion fruit, super high in fiber. Pears, 5.5 grams of fiber. Apples, obviously size matters, but 4.5 grams of fiber. Avocados are a really good one. And then if you're thinking about like, okay, what's the calorie range on this? Like I'm hoping to make a chart for that too. So those of you that are on a calorie deficit, you just have one-stop shop for that kind of stuff, or just helpful. Cause like avocado, obviously I don't want you to restrict avocado because it's so nutritious, but learning that avocado is a healthy fat. Healthy fats are also in like things like nuts and seeds, like chia seeds and hemp seeds. So sometimes they can be higher in calories, and that doesn't mean that's not bad. It honestly is probably going to make you feel more full and more satiated for longer, which is good. But, it's just something to be aware of. Artichokes, even if you just get the canned artichokes, I was going to post a video of me making artichokes twice this year, and I just messed up. My mom would be so disappointed. Like, that's just something we've always made, and I just kept screwing it up, but we'll get there. I just buy the canned artichokes now, and I chop them up and put them in a salad, just like the artichoke hearts, or you roast them, and it's super simple. Same with broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and then the beans and legumes. Lentils are super high in fiber. Edamame is really high in fiber and protein. Quinoa is also a really good protein source and fiber source. Lentils, barley, oats, chia seeds. So yeah, I definitely want to make a list that has, the calories and the protein of all these as well. It'll probably be a list of like the fruit section, highest amount of fiber to lowest, and then I'll just put the protein stuff. And then, it'd be cool to have like highest to lowest of fiber. And then you can also filter it. There'll be like a protein column, and it can be like, okay, I see which one has the highest amount of fiber. Let's see which one has the highest amount of protein now. And then you kind of like mix and match, and then you can do the calories. Ooh, I could do that in like Excel or something. It's a pretty good idea. Okay. I hope I'm still recording. Here's more. I would just print this off, make it your wallpaper, something like that can really help. Obviously, you're all in the community now, so that's fun. And then when you click on this, you can get a sample meal plan. And then I was wondering why I had 33 pages. I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this? It's because I have stuff in there that I haven't shown you all yet, like fun challenges and stuff that maybe I'll show. Here's some of the research. You can click on all of these. It's super interesting. I love it. I just think it's the most fascinating thing ever. Yeah. This is if you go to the resources section in the community, you'll see start here and you'll learn the 5 groups. So this is a really, obviously if you go like here, you'll see the 5 groups, but I just think this is a helpful chart. You can also print this off, and every single time I'm making a meal, I'm thinking about what I can add. And sometimes I might double up in a certain group if I don't want to eat like a piece of fruit or something. This is like an easy go-to breakfast. That carbonate bread is super high in fiber. And then this one is 7 grams of fiber. Well, the gluten-free one is 14 grams of fiber, 1 gram of protein. And then the regular one is, you get in the freezer section. The regular one's like 7 grams of fiber, 7 grams of protein. It's super expensive. Like, you don't need to buy it. Like, it's expensive. I like it. I buy it. It lasts me a while. I don't eat it every day. Up to you. Everyone's different with that. But there's also, I have a video. I'll find the video for you, but I have a video with some other high fiber breads. Like, there's some at Costco. There's some at Wegmans. Sara Lee is a really good one. I also posted some high fiber breads in the community too. So, definitely a lot of options. You don't need to get one that is added fiber. There's tons of ones that are also just naturally high in fiber because they're made from whole wheat. Anyway, pick a high fiber bread. Then you can add something like avocado. If you don't like avocado, that's fine. A lot of people have been doing like mashed up edamame or mashed up chickpeas on bread. That's another thing you could do. And then I make a little salad with arugula and tomatoes, there's not that much fiber in that, but that's like fine. It's just thinking about what else can I add. I like to add a couple different colors because that's also naturally going to give you more fiber, but also more nutrients. And then nuts and seeds. This is where I've like not wanted to add nuts and seeds, and I just do because I tell you to. And then beans and legumes, I skipped. And then the next step would be add more colors. So like I said, you can double up in certain groups. So the more you add, the better, and the less like restricted you're going to feel, because it's not about restriction. It's just about learning what the fiber sources are, learning what the protein sources are, and gradually adding them and finding staples that you can have, going to Aldi and getting mixed nuts. So yeah, you can always just add more diversity that way too. So here's just some examples. And then this I need to post, but this was a fun challenge I did where you are really working on just getting all the colors in. Let's choose 3 different fruit colors or 3 different colored fruits from each of these, and then vegetables. And then I wrote like a bunch of examples. So, you know, maybe this week when you go to the grocery store, or for next week when you go to the grocery store, you can think about this. And then that's naturally giving you some more diversity as well. And then if you do this challenge, which I'll put, I got to fix some of this. So I should probably just stop recording now. I'm just giving you some examples. And then, yeah. Okay, that's all. I hope this is helpful. I will post it so everyone can look at it. And yeah, I hope you guys have a good rest of your week and a good, safe weekend. And then we will do another webinar or maybe a Q&A next week. Definitely want to get to 50 people. So share this with any friends or family members that you think would also benefit from it. It can be really fun for you guys to do these types of challenges together and to do this community together and really encourage each other to eat more fiber and get more nutrients in. So yeah, I'll talk to you later.